Alex Stine, part 2.
3.
Well, it's part 2
Here. Okay.
Because we're going back to back.
Okay.
The other one was like a year ago.
It's been that long?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like we had so much to say, we just had to keep the conversation going. And you're like, I have no idea what else we could say.
I mean, it was pretty dense last time.
Yeah, it was dense.
It was
last
pretty
time.
dense.
One thing that is kind of happened since then was that video of Reed having his little meltdown before he got into the ring were over 2 million views, which is blowing my mind. And I'm getting, I would say 99% of it, is positive. You got a couple moms chiming in, child abuse, a couple weirdo dudes saying child abuse, a couple people CT before algebra and all this kind of stuff. And then I have to chime in and explain to them that there's no head contact in that division. The worst one is this poor woman. She literally chimed in because she's trying to say that, putting a kid in a situation like that, the head contact, whatever, is really bad for him. Then I explained to her that there's no head contact, and she goes, "Oh, I didn't realize that, my bad." And I was like, "We're good, I appreciate you, or what your argument is." And she was like, "No, I was in the wrong." And there's 1,200 "you're gonna murder your children" comments. Like no one read the part where we kumbaya'd, and then she's just getting buried. She had to put her account on private. I'm like, I almost wanted to turn the comments off because this poor woman's getting buried. And
I'm surprised you don't.
But I turned it, it helps to have a conversation. But I hopped in, I was like, guys, didn't you see the part we agreed? No one read that. They just went right back. I mean, they're just gassing her. I'm like, whoa. But, it is the internet. The internet is kind of a dumpster fire. So,
I mean, we could spend a whole episode talking about this, but keyboard warriors. It's a lot different saying something to somebody's face than to, of course,
Exactly.
warriors.
The one thing though with this has been a large amount of fighters and big organizations have chimed in. They've followed, liked, shared, commented, and they all are saying the same thing. This little kid is physically showing and verbally saying what they feel every fight. And I was like, because I even say in the video at one point, I'm like, hey, this never changes. You will always have this feeling. Every person who's ever fought has had this feeling.
Right.
It never goes away. The panic never goes away.
No.
You just learn to deal with it differently. And now the question is 6 years old too young for someone to be faced with that? But quite honestly, I never in a million years thought that kid would melt down. I thought he trained all summer, super excited, high-fiving, walking around the house talking about how he's gonna kill this kid, and he wants to be like his brother and his dad and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, you wanna fight? Like, he's fired up. And then everybody looks at Brian Jr. and is like, oh, they're always worried about him. He's like just cool, cold, calculating. I just want to do this. Reed's the one they think's just gonna wreck everything. And then he literally goes to get his gloves and he sees all the kids and he sees what's going on. And then he just freaked out. And that's, somebody commented, they said, to mic yourself up and film that moment, you're a jerk off. And I was like, man, we never saw that coming. There was zero intention in capturing my son under duress. Yeah. It was like, no, we followed everyone in the day, and I didn't think anybody would have a meltdown. And that was just the realest, rawest moment that we happened to capture. And I thought it really encapsulated how we all have felt when we've done this.
That's what I love about the kids division, honestly, is because there's no filter with any of the emotions or any of the...
They don't know how to filter.
Or what they're dealing with. Or even like we were talking about last time, Toro's first fight.
Yeah.
And...
cried his way through the first 2 rounds.
Do you remember when the kid kept accidentally hitting him in the head and then Toro kind of purposely hit him in the head once just
Yeah,
because he
just
felt.
like-
It's just like, you know,
But
it's
it brought
funny.
that out of him.
Right. But you see that so raw in the kids division. And then, like you said, all those emotions, everything carries throughout your whole life. Doesn't matter what age you are, you just get better at kind of like controlling or.
And everybody's looking at Reed going, oh, I love this kid. And it's because, again, he just is the embodiment of what we all feel whenever we are under stress. And, you know, as we get older too, I think a lot of it is we look for permission to be able to crack because we feel like we're not allowed to as we get older. Mm-hmm. And it happens. And I mean, I've been in the locker rooms of some of the biggest organizations on the planet, and I've seen guys whose names I'm not going to drop cry before fights. Like, these emotions are raw, they're real. We're all just human beings, and just because we fight doesn't mean we're any tougher. Probably means we're just a little bit crazier, like, or we just, you know, it's a different disposition. Mm-hmm. But, you know, fear is a real thing. And the one I just want to like talk about, just to get it out there from my perspective. The hardest part about that was I'm sitting there and my son melts down. And I'm literally like, all I want to do is pick him up and walk out of there and go buy him ice cream. I don't want to work through this because my kid's obviously in duress.
It's the job of a parent.
But it's really easy to give in and say, yo, here's a tablet, here's ice cream, where do you want to go, what do you want to do? It's really easy, but the hard part was I'm going a million miles a second in my brain. Like, what do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here? How do I calm him down? What do I say? I mean, and then I just got to the point where it's like, if I don't work with him to get him in there, because I don't care how he does now. Because I'm like, he's not going to do okay. Mm-hmm. Like, cause he's just like, he's leaving it all on the table before it even starts. Like, he's emotionally wasted by the time that bell rings. And I'm just saying, but he needs to walk through those ropes. Because if I don't help him get through those ropes, if I don't give him the confidence to face it like that, then he's being trained that just have a meltdown whenever he doesn't want to do anything. I'm not reinforcing the commitment, Sitch. He committed. He said, I want to do it. I said, you sure? He said, yes. You know, we trained for it. We got there. We went through the process. You're like right there. If you don't get in there, what am I teaching them? Like, you don't have to do things?
I give you a lot of credit because a lot of parents nowadays would just kind of be like, oh, let's take the easy road. And, you know, obviously I don't have kids, but I can see how a lot of people would take the easy road. But the problem becomes, like, eventually your kid is going to face hardship that you cannot help out with.
Exactly.
And they need to have the character and the tool set to deal with that.
Exactly.
And the younger they learn, the better.
And that's why I said, we got to get in there. Everybody asks, how'd he do? He got in there, he fought a 7-year-old, he's 6, there's between 6 and 7. You think about it, 6, 7, that's a massive difference. That kid was a lot taller, longer. I don't know what his experience level was. Kid ran across the ring, hit him with a long kick, knocked him over. Reed looked at me like, what the hell was that? He still got back up. And then the kid did it again. And then he tried to throw something. And then like the kid kind of pushed him and the referee called it off. And I did kind of get mad at the referee because I was like, yo, give the kid a chance. So I was like, you didn't really even give him a chance. But at the same time, I was like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
In there. What needed to happen, happened.
Yes, exactly. And what the optics are not the issue at the time. I don't really care what the outside looking in, what their opinion about it is. We're having conversations now about it. I'm clarifying it because as a parent, as an instructor, as a coach, as a human who cares about other humans, I'm like, there was just so much there that could have very positive or negative long-term effects potentially. Yeah. Maybe not. It could be a moment he could forget. Maybe he'll never think of it again. Or maybe for the next 10 years of his life, that's going to get played on repeat. Who knows? But I said, if whatever this is, I guess I got to stick to the plan. And the plan was, we made a commitment, we got to follow through, and hopefully we'll understand the value of that, and that's it.
You know what's interesting? I think if you let him quit, he probably would have forgot about it. But the fact that you didn't, he'll probably remember that.
And you want to know crazy? This is crazy. Sunday, we're in the backyard, and he wants to. I have a basketball hoop there. He loves basketball. He's obsessed with basketball. He's like, so let's do a shoot off, whatever. I said, okay. So I shoot. He shoots, and now we're going. We're like 7 for 7, and he goes, "Ooh, my heart's beating," because I'm getting nervous. And then he goes, "If I can fight that kid, I can make this shot."
Really?
And he threw it, and then I was like, "Okay, it was all worth it."
Yeah.
Right there, it was worth it. That was the moment I said, okay, he figured out something positive from this, so I'm okay.
Well, it was like on the first podcast we ever did, how I said that fighting, like, it gives you a tool set that kind of go through life with. Like, nervous energy is nervous energy. Mm-hmm. You might be more nervous or less nervous in certain situations, but, you know, for me, the hardest part of fighting was always in the back, like waiting to go into
I don't
the ring.
think it's not for you. I don't think there's a fighter alive that will say that that's not the worst part.
But it's the same feeling you have if you're going in for a job interview, or if you're going, I don't know, to take a big test. You could be going in
to go get blood taken out, and you're sitting in the waiting room, and you're waiting for the nurse to hit you with a needle. Like, anything you know could potentially be painful, that they then, like, yeah, this may suck. Hey, hold on. Just wait about 30 minutes, and we'll come and do this thing.
Yeah.
And then your brain's like, oh my God, what is this going to be? Like, you've heard me say this. You know, when you go into a fight, I'm like, what is this person going to do that you haven't had done to you? Mm-hmm. So as long as we've put ourselves through the test, you do have the ability to say, okay, this feeling I have right now, it's natural and it's normal, but it's unfounded. It's not necessary. So when you understand, like, nothing's going to happen here that's going to be better or worse than anything else I've already experienced. I've survived it. It wasn't that bad anyway. Nothing's ever really as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm okay. And it allows you to, bring the volume down. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have those challenges, you don't have control of the volume. And I think that's like when I have people chiming in, it's like, oh my God, why did you do this to your kid? I'm like, well, I want my kid to have control of the volume.
Yeah.
There's so many kids that don't. I mean, I have kids right now. I have a couple kids that just joined, and their parents are like, yo, everybody's telling me my kid's got ADHD or this or that or whatever. And I'm not saying they don't, but the first thing they're saying that, okay, Johnny can't sit still. I'm like, well, maybe he doesn't have a problem. Maybe he has a disconnect with what's going on, because no one's saying, hey, I need you to focus. I need you to do this. I need you to do that, or connecting with a purpose or a value to it. So I'm like, hey, before you go and over-medicate your child, can we try to just see how they connect with value and purpose, and can they actually learn, or is there really a problem here? And I'm no doctor. I'm not trying to solve anything, but I'm like, hey, let's try and do this thing with other kids, with adults who care and are aware of what's going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, even on a more practical level, it's like you're telling somebody, I'm assuming they're saying they have ADHD because they probably have a hard time focusing in school.
Yes.
How long is a school day? 6-8 hours?
What kid wants to be strapped to a damn desk?
What adult wants to be strapped to a desk for 8 hours? It's funny, I try to work out either before I go to work or on my lunch break, take a lap around the building, because sometimes you just got to get that energy out.
Of course.
So it's I think that any sport is great for anybody to just get that energy out. It kind of calms you down and dials you in for everything else.
The beauty of what we do is that it's not fully internal, it's not fully external. Mm-hmm. It's that combination of the two.
Yes.
You can't rely just on one. I don't even think it's a real story. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's real history. I think it's something that was made up for a movie once. But somebody told me that Chinese martial arts, the origin of Chinese martial arts was that the monks were meditating so much that their bodies were failing, so they needed to do exercise. So then they started to do dynamic movements to keep their body strong. So they started to eat differently, and they started to do more physical things. But then the governments were trying to destroy the monastery, so they learned how to defend themselves, and that's how the genesis of it. It's a great story. It actually has value, though, because if you just go internal, your body falls apart. If you just go external without a connection on the internal, it's kind of like this, you're carrying around like this useless armor in a lot of ways. You have to have the balance of the both, so that it's like, if you are going to be strong and if you are going to basically be a weapon, you have to have a code and a base mentally. You have to have, that's where the character and the integrity part come in, from being introspective and understanding relationships, so that you can use it appropriately. So it's that balance. And that's what I think is so important. And then when you go to the competitive side of it, it ratchets up to a whole nother level. Amateur fighting, there's really nothing on the line. Everything's on the line in the moment for the person doing it. But the record doesn't matter. You're not making a living off of it. It's all, amateur is experience. But pro, with your record on the line and all this stuff, that's now where that internal and that external, the internal now ratchets up even more. The amateur is where you built up the external. The internal now as a pro is that much more, because it's not the ability to execute. It's the ability to turn down the outside influence, the ability to focus on what matters, the ability to not get discouraged when it's difficult, but to stay in a positive mindset. Like, do you want to be the guy who wants to take the winning shot every game, or are you only good when it's good? I mean, we've seen the front runners. We've seen the guys that fall apart when the opponent actually starts to fight back. And you can almost see in certain athletes where it's like, why is this guy fighting me back? Well, why are you beating him up? Like, you're both trying to do your job.
Isn't it crazy how many times we've heard some of our guys say, like, this guy's trying to hurt me? Or like,
isn't that the agreement?
This guy's like, I can't believe he hit me, or I can't believe he stuffed my takedown.
Or you get a wrestler, like, why is he trying to take me down? I'm the wrestler. I mean, we've had strikers in the past that have done MMA that literally complain that the other guy was trying to hit him. And it's like,
yes,
they're like, but it's MMA. He's the grappler. I'm the striker. Why is he trying to hit me? Well, what? We're all trying to do it all.
It's
like,
a fight.
It's not you're the striker, he's the grappler. We didn't make that agreement. The agreement was we work with all the available skills to try and win the day. But yeah, it's odd how, I don't know. I don't even know where that weirdness comes from. But it's like, to me, I always scratch my head like, seriously? Like, that's the way you're thinking right now?
Yeah.
Like, why are we not like just adjusting? Why aren't we just like pivoting to where we got to be successful? We can't be fighting those battles. But that's again, that's that internal, that external, finding that balance so that we can think effectively, we can keep the pressure down, and we don't fall into the unrealistic interpretation of stuff that's just satisfying our individual view.
It's crazy. It's funny you should bring this topic up. I was watching a video today on the downfall of Jason Mayhem Miller.
Oof. Well, I mean, he's schizophrenic.
Well, yes, he was always a little off the wall, but
they found him naked in a church covered in feces. He's got literally some serious problems. He went away for a long time.
Yeah, but I mean, that's somebody who, you know, again, based on this kind of mini documentary I was watching, somebody who was very obsessed with the glitz and the glam and kind of the
Mayhem. He wanted to be Mayhem Miller. He wanted to be the nickname.
The crazy showman.
But that's the other one, the construction of a personality that disconnects you from the reality of who you are. So now you've lost who you are, and now you're playing a part. So it's like, that's why the old, you know this from conversations from in the past, you don't give yourself a nickname. You earn that.
It is, yes.
Someone else gives that to you.
Right.
Because if you're fabricating this image of yourself, that's kind of a problem. The other night, so after sparring, how we circle everyone up.
Yeah.
So we circle up and we go around, and everybody has to say their piece about the day. I made a point. I said, look, we're going to do an exercise tonight. No one can talk about themselves. You have to talk about everybody else. And let's see if what you were going to say about you comes back to you from other people.
Okay.
So instead of being like, hey, I felt good, or I was struggling with, say something specific you saw like in other people, and leave it at that. And everyone was like, huh. And it was a problem because a lot of people couldn't get out of their own position. And I would call them out. And it was like, so what? No, it's not you. Tell me somebody else's story, not yours today. And like, I kept hammering that. And it got more constructive because people were like, hey, you did this, you did that. It wasn't me, 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 me. It became about you. And it was different. And you have to ground yourself in that, because when everything is about you and your interpretation and how you're taking it and how you're giving it, we lose the exchange. And fighting is always two people locked into an area that are going to have this dance together. And if you're stuck only in your side, then it gets weird. And that's why, again, like just on the simplest thing of like not constructing your own nickname, because if you give yourself that nickname, you had an intention. You have a feeling of aspiring to be this thing. It wasn't something that others saw in you. It's something you're aspiring to. It probably doesn't even exist, honestly. Mm-hmm. You're trying to gas yourself up to be something.
You know, you kind of screwed me up this week, because I've been thinking about this whole week, is when you talked about shrinking the bubble. How certain people are very afraid to kind of almost broaden their horizons and learn a different way or a different perspective, because the cognitive dissonance is just too much. Mm-hmm. So whenever people are presented with information that kind of conflicts with what they already know or what they already feel, it's like you said, I tried explaining this to people, but I couldn't do it as articulate as you could. But it's so true. Now that when you brought that to my attention, I really realized how often and how many people, like, they just shrink that bubble.
Well,
they don't want to be looked at.
People start that, you can start a conversation and someone's confidence going to go the way they want.
Right.
So we're talking in this big global term. And then you're like, no, I don't agree. And so they shrink it down to like a continent. No, I'm still not there. And eventually you're gone. And it's just one thing, tightly wrapped, and they're not moving beyond it anymore. That's like the crazy part about the bubble, is that, I truly believe I'm an agnostic. Mm-hmm. I believe what I believe based off the information that I have. Mm-hmm. If you bring me new information, not just talk, I'm talking about like you give me real data that challenges the data that I've got, and I see that I may be wrong, or my data might be wrong, or it's just adding up differently, I'll change my opinion, because ultimately I don't want to be wrong because I'm trying to stay right, I guess. So I don't want to fight for a wrong idea. I just want to be right. And I don't care if it was your idea or my idea. I just want to deal with the truth. I want to deal with reality, and I want to make progress. And honestly, the biggest change in my life was when I started to accept that other people would bring stuff to the table that was better than what I had. Now I'm not at the table alone anymore. Right. Now I've got other people. And the sad part is when I accept information from somebody, they're almost surprised. Mm-hmm. Because we all fight so much over nonsense, and we try and be right at our own expense, like at a real expense, but our ego stays okay, but we don't, it's like we keep disconnecting, and that's the shrinking part. So it's like when you construct this reality, and then when people challenge it, you just keep deconstructing it until you're like, leave me alone. I just want to be with my own thoughts. And that's what happens so many times.
Why do you think so many people do that? And how do you fix it?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's a cultural problem for us as Americans. Yeah. As part of it, we're not communal. Okay. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but the lone wolf issue. So I saw a video, I may have even sent it to you, or you may have sent it to me. Somebody sent it to me. It was this guy talking about the lone wolf and how everybody thinks that the guy said it as a global statement. He said, men look at the lone wolf concept as the pure vision of strength, and that's what you're aspiring to be. He said, but in like actual wolves don't run alone. They run in a pack, and they have a hierarchy, and they have a leader. And when the leader gets cut down, they have a guy waiting to take over, and like they systematically live to achieve their daily goal of survival. And my point on that was, it's a very American idea to be the lone wolf. It's more places I go, the more I see that more people around the world have a communal sense than we do. And that's the bubble again. We live in this place, this continent, away from everybody else. And we came here we came here as persecuted people. We landed on the East Coast. We battled our way to the West Coast. We never lost the idea of the great frontier. We're always trying to expand. This generation better than the next. I have to make more than this guy. Everything is always this constant, I need more than the generation before. More. And it's up to me, and I have to build it on top of the ashes of what came before me. Like it's this thing where, we're trying to climb to the top of the mountain by ourselves. I find that to be more of an American thing. And that's where a lot of this comes down to, is like, you can't accept what other people are saying because the idea of I individually have to be so strong, and giving in and saying you may know more is weakness. You may be better is weakness. Like having that kind of discussion is a problem. And then in combat sports, it's even worse because we get in there and then we fight each other. And then it's like, okay, like there's a winner and there's a loser.
Right.
And now you got to accept the reality that you won or you lost. I mean, Sean O'Malley just lost to Marab, and the first thing he does is he goes and he breaks down the video and says, no, I'm still champ. I'm like, dude, I get your shtick, but you're not helping anything here.
Right.
Like, we've got to stop not accepting reality. But we are at a very odd time where 2 + 2 can be whatever you want it to be. This isn't a left issue or a right issue. This is a very American problem right now where people are like, you can be whatever you want to be.
Well, I do agree it might be worse in the US, but when you were saying all that, something I think of, and it's kind of ties into the video with your son, is like the whole social media. The reason being is because, especially when COVID hit, people can keep themselves entertained and occupied alone. And they can filter the information and everything that they want to, I mean, the internet is so expansive, but you can shrink the bubble down to whatever you want.
Yeah, but think about it, though. Here's your problem with your device. We sit in a room with 100 people. 99 of them have their phone out. Mm-hmm. They're disconnected from every other person, and they've shrunk the bubble down to the one guy who's liking whatever it is that they're saying in the moment, and they're not connected to anything. So you're in a room full of people feeling alone, and you're getting validation, but you're disconnected because you're not, it's just, you got a ping that validates.
Do you think though, like with that bubble too, and like with social media, like let's say back in, the 80s or the 90s, like you had to talk to people face to face. Like you couldn't like just follow like all Republican accounts on Instagram or all that. Like you had to talk to people, and like
more easily manipulated in the moment because this technology is really being, I mean, there's an algorithm behind all this that is giving us stuff to keep us engaged. And I don't think they think about the long-term cost of it. I think they think of the short-term gain that they have to do because, again, these companies have to grow and whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough battle. I mean, and I think we're faced with this every day where, so we have this time where we turn the phone off, we get on the mat, we do our job, but you still have this looming reality of it's waiting for you. We have this, it's waiting for us.
Yeah. And
that device represents a text, a phone call, a DM from every social platform you're on. Mm-hmm. So it's like, a news update, a sports score, a new post. There's just so much available.
Yeah.
So this thing with Reed going nuts, I mean, over 2 million views, all these thousands and thousands of comments and shares and all this stuff. And I'm surprised at how it's like a game for me. Mm-hmm. I am like really not emotionally attached to it. I'm kind of like, okay, I've got all these eyeballs right now in this weird moment. Now what can I do with it? Like, can I do something good with it? Can I grow what we've got with it? Can I interact with people? So I did another podcast. The guy invited me onto another podcast. Great. I've had people hit me up, ask me questions. I had a dude send me footage of his training and said, could you give me your opinion? Like, I've actually interacted with people more. The negative comments, I literally laugh. I respond to them. It's not, I'm not losing any sleep over any of this stuff. But I've seen it hit people hard. I think 10 years ago, if this happened, I probably would be in the rabbit hole trying to be a YouTube star. Like, I was not where I was 10 years ago versus where I am now, completely different. So I think I'm taking it kind of with a grain of salt, and I'm like, my life's not changing over this. Instagram doesn't even monetize anymore. Who cares? Like, it is what it is. Like, there's this thing, there's a conversation. We got, okay, so the brand is more known, cool, but I still got to get up. I still got to go to work. I still got to get people on the mat. I still got to pay the bills. I still got to feed my kids. Like, I got to do what I got to do. So, it's just another part. But I see the stress that a lot of these guys have over this stuff. I mean, even with the fights, we've had more people pull out of fights in the last 2 years than we had in the prior 20.
Really? You think so?
100%. 100%.
Like, just like,
I don't want to go down all the names of it, but we've had more amateurs pull out of fights in the last 2 years for sure.
Really?
And I think,
okay.
Or committed to fight, but not even like, when I say pull out, we didn't even get close to making it. Like, I'm going to do it. Then they get matched up. Then we get started. Then they drop off. I mean, it's that stutter start. It's that, I want to do it.
So you're saying they stop even like 2 months before?
Yes, we're not talking about fight week.
I thought you meant like 6 weeks out, all of a sudden
we're talking about somebody takes a fight 6-7 weeks out, and then 5 days later, like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at everyone do it and like, this will be cool. It's a great image in time. It's a great post. It's a great comment. Everybody's going to love it. And then you start to train. And in the beginning, when you start training, you're in the worst condition you've been for. Day one of fight camp is the worst shape you're going to be in the entire camp.
Right.
And you're nervous. And you've looked at the other guy and nothing really is setting right. And you haven't found your rhythm yet. So like, you're freaking out. And you're going, I don't know if I can do it. I posted I'm going to do it. Oh my God. Then they're going to see the result. And that result going into this, and then to the reality of like, no one's paying attention. No one's paying attention. Like, who's going to see it? Like, you're fighting on a local amateur show. Who's going to see it? What? You're going to get 2 million views on your video? Like, you're going to get 2 million views on your shin guards and your big gloves? Like, no one cares.
Right.
It's not the UFC. You're not Conor McGregor. You're not there, but you feel like you are. And again, it's that sense of fame. And that's why you have guys manufacturing nicknames for themselves and trying to create hype machines, because if I get the likes and the follows, that's all I need. No, you really got to be good first. Conor McGregor is the one. I feel like he's like the Floyd Mayweather of MMA.
Yeah.
Everyone hates Floyd or they love Floyd. It's undeniable that he's very skilled, but people will still come at that skill. He's just a trash-talking guy who protected himself, or he's the greatest boxer of his generation. There's no in-between on the conversation. Conor, same thing. Oh, he got lucky with the punch on Aldo. He got lucky with this. He got lucky with that. And I'm like, man, look at the totality of his career. Look at the documentary on him. This dude's a maniac.
Yeah.
A maniac. Outworking everybody. He had the balls to dare to try. And he truly did believe, but his belief was grounded in like a weird psychology, but a massive body of work. He didn't say the universe is going to make me champ and not train. He said, I have to put in 12 hours a day.
Right.
Like, the craziest thing, he would go, when he was early on, he would spend whatever money he made in his fights on things because he wanted to go into his fight broke, because he wanted to know if he didn't win, he was going to have to give it all back.
That's crazy.
Dumb, but it worked.
Yeah.
He lived up to his challenge. And that was like the thing with him, is that I look at that and I say, okay, I don't know if he really was taking on, like, I think he had this weirdly healthy, I'm going to challenge myself thing.
Yep, I agree.
And he had to live up to the personal challenges. It didn't start off as, I have to show the world. It started off as like, I'm going to do this thing that you may not agree with, and I'm going to put myself in a bad spot, and I'm only going to get out if I win, because he knew in those moments, like, he needed that level of motivation to get up early and stay late and then put it all on the line.
Yeah.
It worked for him.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do kind of with, like you said, like the posting and stuff. It's almost like, you know, are you doing something because you enjoy it? Are you doing something because it brings you happiness, you want to challenge yourself, you have something to prove to yourself? Or is it just for, is it just for like
want to be famous?
The facade of just...
All right, I'll go deep on this. We went deep last time, I'll go deep again.
All right, let's hear it.
When you come to this and you have this big void inside of you, when you have that hole and you're coming to fighting because you think you're going to fill that hole up with all the attention, you're dead. You're dead before you start. You might as well put a tombstone on your career, and your life is going to be really hard. Mm-hmm. Like, I've had dozens of guys that would try and fight their way through life's problems. And I'm like, no, you're getting this ass backwards. You have to train your way through the problems. Mm-hmm. And you have to fight when you've kind of figured it out and you've filled the void and you've found your purpose. Because that void, no matter what you do, is never filled until you actually fill it with something real.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle with so many of these athletes. And that's the thing. Like, if you're fighting because you think you need fame or love or adoration from this faceless group that's just gonna cheer or gonna put you down or whatever, like, you don't know what the crowd's gonna do. Mm-hmm. The crowd doesn't really care about you. They're just there for the moment.
And the event, yeah.
And they're there for themselves. They bought tickets to entertain themselves and eat a hot dog and drink a beer and boo and cheer and go through the experience. They don't give a shit about you. Mm-hmm. They're not gonna wipe the blood off your face and pat you on the back and be like, in the morning, give you a call and say, you okay? Like, it's a horribly lonely place to rely on that. And that's that thing where if you don't take the time to figure out where those gaps are within yourself and then figure out why you have those gaps and then kill whatever it is in you that made that happen, these things just never go away. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest one for me as a human being, was kind of like, why am I getting so... when we went to Chicago for Glory, do you remember that?
Of course, how could I?
Do you remember that I had to leave? I had to go separately from you guys
to
the venue. I couldn't get in the van with you. I took an Uber. I was so stressed out about the fight that I didn't know if I was going to throw up, shit my pants, or pass out.
Oh, yeah.
And I literally was like, you guys go, and I'll meet you there.
Yeah, I remember.
Because I was afraid that if I was going to embarrass myself in the van by having something physical happen. And I literally got in an Uber, and I made the guy stop at one point because I thought I was going to throw up. And I had to go into a restaurant, and I was afraid the guy was going to steal my bag and take off. But, like, that was the show that I literally walked out of there and I said, why do I care so much? Mm-hmm. And I really had to sit down and I had to walk through it all. And I had to figure out, why do I care so much? And I literally had to learn to, like, it wasn't that I didn't care. I had to care about real things, not these, like, ghosts that were following me around. Yeah. The idea of, like, oh, you're not a good coach if you don't win. Mm-hmm. You, like, this whole thing of, like, this moment's going to validate me. This guy who I can't control, who's going in a ring, and if he executes or doesn't execute, that's on me. Yeah. Like, I do the best I can with everyone I've got, but ultimately the fighter has to execute.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, no matter what I do, I can't fix it.
How many times have we been, had guys fight and we're like, I don't know, stop circling to your right, stop circling to your right. And then after 5 minutes of doing that, they get caught with something going to
And
the
you don't
right.
want to
and
do that.
not-
I told you so, but it's like, but here's the thing. But think about it. How many times have we had a guy go in, do something, and we're like, they do everything we said not to do. And they lose. But they do everything we tell them not to do, and they'll lose.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, you suck as a coach. Your gym sucks, you suck. And it's like, have you been there the last 8 weeks when all we did was say every single day, don't do exactly what they ended up doing? They didn't do it the entire training camp. We acknowledged it, we addressed it, and then the lights came on and the bell rang, they freaked the fuck out, and there we go. So, am I really a bad coach and are we really a bad gym? Yes and no. As a coach, I fully take responsibility for the people that I've worked with and for putting people in situations that they psychologically were not prepared to excel in. I got them to where they said they wanted to go. If they were prepared or not prepared, it's so hard. If you tell me you want to go to the UFC and you physically have the ability to get through it, and I've got this thought in the back of my head, you're going to die when you get there, but at least you got there, that's bad. And I think that's my shortcoming. Because I'm not going there because like, oh, I want to be famous and rich, because there's no fucking money in it. Your first contract in the UFC, every fighter makes $10,000 a show, $10,000 to win.
That's it? I thought it was like
10,000. I think it's at
like
12 now. I think it's at 12. 12,000. You make 12,000 to show up, 12,000 to win.
You don't quit your day job, I guess, right?
You win, I make $2,400. I make 10% of your money. I get $2,400 for like 8 weeks of debilitating training on my part. I'm taking shots every day for all that time. I have to leave my family, go on the road, the whole thing. I lose more money by leaving. Like I have to get childcare. My wife's, I gotta make sure my wife's good. I can't teach my classes that week. I can't do privates that week.
$2,400.
So for a week, like for $2,400, but it's not for $2,400. It's every fighter has the potential. First contract's first contract.
Right.
You're not in this for the first contract. You're in this for the fifth contract when you're on a title shot. But you gotta risk so much to try and get there. And everyone looks at coaches like, oh, cool lifestyle. Yo, this is rough.
Yeah.
Hamdi and I traveled. We fought 5 times in 6 months before he went to the UFC. He was fighting for 500, 1,000. I think the best payday he got was 2,500 bucks. I mean, I made like the best. He gave me $500 off a fight that he made like 1,000 on. I said, you don't have to pay me that much. You don't owe me that. He goes, no, I do. He's like, you're on the road with me every other week. This is ridiculous. He's like, you're leaving your family. And I was like, wow, a fighter finally gets it. It was amazing. Like, I was like, I don't even want your money. Just acknowledging what I do right there made me feel good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, we're in this together. Championship of big organization is the goal. We believe we're on the mission together. We're fine. Cool. That's 1 in 100 situations. Most of them, most of the fighters don't really appreciate that the same way. Whatever.
Right.
But again, I care about the guys. I want to see where it goes. It's not about the money. It's about those 15 minutes from bell to bell. Fine. But like seriously though, like when you think about it, you're fighting for like 10 and 10, 12 and 12. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. The amount of pressure, the fame, all of it, the commitments we all have to make. And like, I'm sitting there worried about what Joe Blow in like Nebraska thinks. Like I'm going to get a headache and a stomach ache and lose sleep over it. Fuck that. Nah. Win, lose, or draw, I'm living the dream because I'm doing what I want. But at this point, if I'm going to live the dream, I do have to address who I'm going to go on this path with. Because it's not even guys that are just going to be respectful to the job, but guys that are going to be mentally prepared for it. And that's why you asked me last time, what changed? And it's like, yo, I kind of got sick and tired of going to the big show and then they flame out because they're just not prepared.
Yeah.
That's a failure of my choice on who I'm going to work with. I would rather turn away a talented athlete who has terrible character than put push it as far as we can and then have the same shitty ass result at the end of the day. Oh, you went to another UFC. Yeah, but I didn't fucking win the title. That's what I'm here for.
Right.
I want to win the belt. And if I can't win the belt and other people are going to do it better, well, maybe that's what they should do. Maybe I really don't belong there. And I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. I really am. If I can find because I think it's lightning when you get a champ. I don't think it's not like this easy manufactured thing. It's circumstance.
Well, you know what's funny? If you look at any like great coach, right? Like Greg Jackson in MMA. He had Diego Sanchez. That was his Trojan horse. Diego Sanchez won the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. Then everybody, and then GSP went to go train with Greg Jackson, Diego Sanchez. Then all of a sudden, everybody converged to Greg Jackson's gym. Or you look at like Customato, Mike Tyson's trainer. He had, was it Floyd Patterson? Was it Floyd Patterson that he had? I forget his name, but he had like one champ. And the issue is when you finally get a champ and it's like you say, you catch that lightning in the bottle, then all of a sudden all these talented people then want to work with you. But to just have like a homegrown champ as a coach that just, you know,
the rise,
it's luck.
But
it's pure luck, honestly.
I think for the majority of the time, a coach getting that lightning athlete is luck. But by acknowledging that, we can change this now. Because we can, once you have enough data, if you don't say it's luck anymore, you say that lucky situation put me through a block of time where I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So like my next evolution of guys is not luck at all. I'm fortunate to get the opportunity to sift through a group of people to find the guy. But I know what I'm looking for now differently. You understand that?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's different though. In the beginning, when nobody knows who the fuck you are, you're lucky that you and somebody else bump into each other and it worked.
Right.
But now you know why it works. You know why it doesn't work. If you're wiser and you're better from it, now if that experience makes you fortunate enough to have a bigger talent pool to have access to, now it's a skill set. Now as a coach, it's skills. It's not, because if I'm still relying on, maybe I'll just bump into the future champ, I'm never, ever going to get there.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny too, because, you know, obviously I don't have as much coaching experience as you do, but having been around you for so long in the gym, it's kind of unfortunate, but I can point to a lot of people and say, you're probably not going to get to the UFC, and here's why. I mean, it could be a mental thing, a physical thing, a character thing, a work ethic thing.
Do you know how many times a day I feel like a dick because someone like tells me their dream, and my first thing is I'm like, but you have this red flag, that red flag, and I'm like, here's all the red flags, you've got them all,
it's
and I'm like, shit, what do I say to you?
It's unfortunate, but you know,
it's the reality though. It's the reality. Like, I mean, I'm not raising these people. Like, these people are coming to me as adults. Like, they have issues. You know my biggest one, though. If you're acknowledging that you have issues and you're trying to solve them, I'm always going to be there. Yeah. Even if it's not going to go that far, I'm still going to be there. Mm-hmm. Because that fight's worth fighting. Mm-hmm. Having someone that's going to give me their best effort to make themselves better is worth all of it. Mm-hmm. That's why I do it. That's why I do it every day, because I feel that the people that we've connected with, the community that we're creating, the vast majority of them are working to be better, just better, and that's fine by me. To be the best, cool. I'm down. But if you're not trying to be better while you're trying to be your best, trying to be the best, that's where we disconnect.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because now that I think about it, as far as like having a fight team, I don't think we've ever had as many people fighting consistently over a long period of time, training together. The last time I could think was probably when Chris Aquino was fighting,
That was
and
Billy and
yeah,
Chris and Puma and
Yes,
Mike.
yeah.
Carl was in the beginning stages, and then we had,
But
then we
even-
had Nick,
but even that was pretty spaced out. I'm talking about like,
Amir,
yeah, yes, Amir, yeah.
Mark Barricold days.
Because it usually goes like, from what I can remember, it was like Jay and Jaffer, and they were like kind of like the two fighters. Then it was Chris and Amir and Mark. They were kind of like three fighters. Then it was kind of like me and Nick Perenni. And then it was like Carl and
Carl.
Yeah, basically Carl.
It was me and Carl.
But now we have like, God, how many people do we have fighting consistently and have been for what, 2 years now? And
I mean, for 2 years, we've had over a dozen people active. It's crazy.
And it's funny too, because I know a lot of people flaked out.
How many fights do you think Jalen has right now?
What does he have, like 7? Because he fought.
7 fights.
It's a lot in 2 years.
But I'm looking at him and I'm like, so, because I'm like, I'm looking at Kevin and I'm going, Kevin's got to be the one with the most fights. I'm like, Kevin's at 5, Jalen's at 7.
Yeah.
Jen's at 5. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Well,
but
it's just,
we're rolling along.
yeah.
Rolling along. The crazy one, and you've seen this too, how many streaks have we gone on that are like legendary streaks?
Yeah.
Like we'll go a year and a half, we don't lose anything. And then one dude loses and then we don't win for a year. It's so nuts how the psychology can be that way, but I don't think the crew we have now is like that. The crew we have now is not relying, they're relying on each other to represent the squad, but they're not relying on each other for their personal strength.
Well, I don't mean to sound cheesy, but I think it's because, our kind of whole motto and dimension or approach to everything kind of changed. It's trust the process.
Yeah.
Do the work. We were never the fluff our feathers up, Jim, but there may have been some of like believing our own bullshit that we're the best. Now it's like, no, listen, you got to put the work in. You got to, it's a more holistic approach instead of like, yeah, we're the best. Like,
the heart during the years where we found a lot of success, but we were pretty dysfunctional. The hard part was what you just said. The whole like kind of feeding into the bullshit. I'm looking at that going, oh boy, this is bad. Like this is going to burn the house down eventually. But the problem is if I question it, they're going to burn the house down right now. Like that group was not people that I could say that. They needed that artificial hype to semi-stay together on it.
So I've been dying to say this the whole podcast, or at least touch on this. I think now's the perfect time because I think it goes well with what you just said. You also blew my mind in the sense this week that you were saying that some people, they have this one thing that they're good at or find success in this one area. And then it's like, whenever you try to offer them advice or a different perspective, it's like, well, screw you, I have this. And it's like you said, anything that goes right is because of them. Anything that goes wrong is because of other people. And they always, it's like that single point of focus that they have. It's like that one thing they can hang their hat on. It's like, oh, well, I'm in the UFC. Why would I listen to what you have to say?
Yeah.
Or I'm, I just won my last 3 fights.
It started off, we did it together. And then when it starts to go wrong,
it's your fault.
Now, we didn't do it together. I was the talent. You were just support. You're lucky that I brought you along. Do you know how much money I've paid you? Do you know how much I've brought you along? How many people I've introduced you to? And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. You forgot what this was. And it's morphed into something else because you're trying to save your opinion of yourself at this point.
Absolutely.
And that's the kiss of death for it all. That's when it seriously goes wrong.
Yeah, but it's like at that point, again, whatever it is, whether you're a fighter, whether you're in business, it's like that mentality right there is the stop of growth. You are literally handicapping yourself.
Okay, so you get people say it's, the grass is greener on the other side. It's like, no, the grass is green over there because you're not watering your own.
Mm-hmm.
what's happening here. Because you get to a point where you're like, okay. But again, it's never been different. The hardest part is we're all weak. We all are. I'm as weak as the next guy. Like, we have our weaknesses. The problem is like when it's getting difficult and now nothing's guaranteed. I mean, our road to a like UFC contract kind of situation, when we work with the right manager, that road is kind of guaranteed. You're getting the right fight on the right show at the right time to get the optics in line, get the numbers in line, get you where you want to go. That's what a good manager does for you. Then when you then get in, now it's like, okay, they can kind of help you. We can negotiate a little bit. But if the matchmaker calls up and says, here's the deal, we're going to renegotiate your contract if you don't take this fight. Yes, sometimes you fight above your pay grade.
Right.
We'll pay you more money. Okay, but I'm going to get shit kicked out of me. You know what I mean? It's like, but this is the business.
Yeah.
But, so you go from like, you're kind of protected, you're doing your thing, to now it starts to get real. And that's when it's like, while it was protected, I was telling you, you're not as good as these numbers represent. We still have to get better.
Right.
Here's the optics. Here's reality. Reality's in the gym right now.
Yes.
You've got to make progress. You've got to get better. Put on a show over here to get the contract, but put in the work so you can keep the fucking contract. That's the thing. But the problem is, person not wired correctly and with too much noise around them and an inability to focus, they listen to too much hype, then they start to get self-empowered in artificial ways. And then when you get into the big show, now all the attacks for real are coming at you. You're fighting real guys with real experience. There's no more gimmies. Your career's on the line, your reputation's on the line, all this stuff's happening. And then people that have been waiting in the wings for that moment because they're manipulative start coming in and they whisper in your ear, you carried this guy long enough, you're here, you got to get real now. Okay, but you've never done anything. You've never worked with anybody.
Yeah.
Like, you're just trying to jump in. Like, what the fuck? It's like craziness. So it's like this, all the vultures will come in. There are real situations too, where you do work with a guy and you do get to the big show and you realize, wait a minute, my room's not good enough for him. They do need more people. And then you do have to let them go.
Right.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you are holding somebody back and you got to let them go. And you got to trust, you're not letting them go. You're letting them go somewhere to get more work. And if you can fit into that, great. But you got to go to the right place. Like, you go to Extreme Tour in Vegas, Eric Nixick runs a room. It's like a football team. He doesn't give a shit. He's not that. It's like a football team without a head coach. He's kind of like the team manager. Guys all come in from all these other places. They all fight for Extreme Couture, but they all have home gyms. They go out there for a couple weeks and they get all their sparring in and they get Nick's input. He stands in the corner with a different crew of guys every fight.
Sounds like somebody we know.
Yeah, but it works for them.
Yeah, I mean,
because they're loyal to the process and they're selfless about it. But then you have Killcliff. They have like a road crew. They have a crew of guys on the road. They have a crew of guys in the gym. They run that like a well-oiled machine. It works. You've got your primary guy. He's always going to be with you. If there's three men in the corner, the third guy is usually your friend who you're most comfortable with. Like, that's the guy who comes out with you on Tuesday. You'll see your coaches on Thursday. But like, they know what they're doing. They have a system. Most places, you have a guy in a small place that wants it all. They want to be the next Extreme Couture, the next Killcliff, the next ATT, the next Factory X. But you got like one fighter. You have no sparring partners. You have no ability to really compete at that level like that. So why don't you let them go to those spots and just let them go? Go with them. Do you know how many times I go to Vegas? Jesus, it's ridiculous. I've been wanting to move there because I spent so much time there because that's where we go to get the work. I travel. You got to do that. So that's that. You kind of have to be selfless, but you have to, again, it all comes back to that primary of, you got to be working with people that are not going to be flavor of the month on the training side of it. They're not going to be their ego's not going to get so inflated that they think like they're the chief cook and bottle washer and you're just somebody that they're carrying.
Yeah, it's tough too because like the guys that we've seen have, moderate or high success, it's kind of like they either start out like not believing in themselves or not nobody else believing in them, and we kind of work with them. But it seems like that inevitably kind of
That's your downfall. If you're starting in that place, that's your downfall.
yeah, but I mean, it's like
The guy that starts off not believing, without belief, they have a dream without belief. They have a need to fill the void we were talking about.
And that becomes
you don't believe in yourself, but you have a dream, and you think the dream solves all your problems. So you don't address your problems, you just work on achieving the dream. But then you get to the dream in this fabricated reality, you haven't fixed anything, and now you're naked and exposed in the middle of an octagon on pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. It's a nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare. And that's why 70% of the roster never sees a third contract.
really.
I mean, it's a meat grinder. And look at Contender Series. Every episode, you got 3-4 more people going into the organization. So
Yeah.
3 or 4 a week. I mean, by the end of it, you got 30 new guys coming into the organization in a 3-month period.
It's crazy.
So you bring all these guys in, you got to move some people out. Those contender guys, if they don't win right away, they're gone.
So nowadays, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it was always like this, but don't they have like guys who are not like officially signed with the UFC, but like they're in New York or New Jersey, so if the UFC comes around here and they need a guy, they might reach out to them?
Not so much. I mean, Bellator was notorious for that. Like the undercard was just filled with local yokels. UFC doesn't do that. Okay. You go into the UFC, you're getting a 3-fight deal. That's like you're in, you don't care. You don't care. You got called, if you got called right now to fight tomorrow, you take it. Mm-hmm. You know that win or lose tomorrow, as long as you don't embarrass them or yourself, you got 2 more fights to prove yourself.
Right.
You're good. You just want to get in. So, will they bring guys from geographical areas at times? Sure, because they want to sell tickets.
Yeah.
But there's not like, you're not going to get a 1-fight deal to be on a card. I mean, These guys are going to be contract fighters, and they look at you differently that way, where it's not a one-off. They're looking at you like, if we're going to give him a contract, he might be fighting in his home state right now, but he might be fighting in fucking France tomorrow, or Vegas, or Texas, or Florida. So they really weigh those decisions. Mm-hmm. I mean, Bo Nickel they brought guys in for him that they're one and done kind of guys because it was Bo and he had no experience, but he has so much upward potential. Like that was just a very freak, weird thing. But you don't have too many Bo Nickels coming in the UFC. These guys are coming in and being treated as normal. I mean, Bo Nickels was his 2nd pro fights in freaking Contender, his 3rd pro fights in Contender. He has less than 4 minutes of fight time combined before he's in the UFC. He's just blowing guys out of the water, attached to ATT, good management behind him. There's no reason for him to fight at Hammond Eggers. I mean, this dude, they brought him in, and yeah, he can make money for the organization. Why not? Mm-hmm. So it's a tricky game, man. It's a tricky game. But ultimately, I think for me, out of everything we're talking about, is that all the experience I've gotten up to this point gives me an option. I can continue to operate however I did and whatever happens, or I can take all that experience and now I can take control of my decisions to put myself to pick and choose who I'm going to work with to achieve lasting success instead of like hype it up, crash and burn, hype it up, crash and burn.
Right.
I don't want to be that guy. I know all those guys. I know the guys that do that. You're the best, you're the best, you're the best until you're not, and then they go find a new guy. I don't ever really want to do that. I mean, the hype guys, the guy who takes a naturally gifted athlete, rides their talent until their talent runs out, and whatever level that is, then they go, yeah, they were never really that good anyway. Okay, that's ridiculous. Take some responsibility, motherfucker. You didn't know what to do with the talent, so you just wrote it. Stop. That's a problem. So you're taking people with dreams and aspirations, and basically you're hyping them to get them as far as you can, and then you go find another one, and you use that person and the longevity you got with them to get the next guy, and you blame the failure on them, not on you, and then you brainwash another dude to come along, and then you wash out another talented guy. That's the horrible aspect of this. I don't want to just focus on the negative, because you got guys like Mark Montoya out in Colorado, who, that dude's a wizard. That dude, he takes guys with no physical ability and gets them on winning streaks in big shows. Like, this is a dude that you come in without belief, he literally cultivates it within you. Mm-hmm. like technically, I don't think Factory X does anything that's going to blow your mind, but that guy makes men of the people that go there. He makes men out of them. And that's why I respect Mark so well.
Factory X, is that where Dustin Jacoby
Yes.
is at? Okay, yeah. He's the bald dude with the beard, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Like the nicest human being,
Yeah.
cares about his guys, grounded in practicality, and he has a program that just makes people live up to their potential. I mean, he had a guy, it was hilarious, guy fought on a fight night at the Apex, and he won, and he got the $50,000 bonus, and they're interviewing him, and he goes, yo, I just got to shout out to my boss, I'm not coming to work on Monday. The guy was pushing shopping carts at a food store in Denver. He was flying home on the red eye to make work after fighting on TV, but he got the bonus, and he goes, yo, I'm not flying home.
Well,
I'll see you guys in a couple days.
I wouldn't either.
But the guy went back to Denver, went back to push shopping carts. He didn't like go buy a Mercedes and act like he's rich. He went, took his money, and he kept his career going. Now the guy probably doesn't work, but we're 2 years later from that, and he's still in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what Mark does. He grounds these dudes. Like, he skipped work on Monday, but he was there on Tuesday.
Okay.
But like it was hilarious because he literally was flying out there to take this fight and was going to take the red eye home so he didn't miss work the next day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
On Call Fighting Contender, I did that. I was running the department stores.
Oh, yeah.
I flew out the day of weigh-ins. We had the fight, and I literally went right to the airport from Contender Series because I had to be at work at 10 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, my God, that's crazy. I forget how long ago that was.
And then when he had his fight in Virginia, his first fight officially in the UFC, I drove to Virginia Beach the day of weigh-ins. He made weight. I came in that night. We had the fight the next day, and I left at like 3 o'clock in the morning because I had to be at work at 9 o'clock the next day. I remember I drove there the day of weigh-ins. I drove through the dark through Delaware, and it was so dark. I thought I was like on a bridge or something.
Tunnel, yeah.
And then when I came back and it was light out, I was like, oh, it's cornfields. I had no idea what the hell.
Really?
I was like, I thought I was driving like through, like, I don't know, like through water or something. I was like, oh my God, it's actually cornfield. It was so crazy. But it's like, man, in the beginning, this is the life.
Yeah, but you look back on those days and it's just, you look back with such fond memories,
Again, this goes back to what we talked about before when you talk about, oh, I won. Oh, yeah, I won with a broken this or a broken that, or I had this adversity. Those adversity days with fights, they make the big ones that much more special. Like Hamdi and I, a 5-month tour, a 6-month tour of duty to get 5 fights, Biloxi, Mississippi, West Palm in the middle of the winter when nobody's there.
Just going and going and going.
We drove to Richmond, Virginia. We were in Biloxi, Mississippi twice. I mean, no offense to anybody from that area, but my God, if I never go back to Biloxi again, it's too soon. That was terrible down there. And then again, you go down, we're outside of Miami in a convention center in the middle of an industrial park, all this weird traveling all over the place. And we do these fights and we do our thing. And then we got the call. And then we went to Dallas and we had that fight on 12 days notice. And we showed up and everybody was like, who the fuck are these guys? And we soldiered out that week. We literally, that week before his fight, we were still training because we took that fight on 12 days notice.
Yeah.
We literally were training for the guy all week. We had 2-a-days all week. I said, look, you got to look at this fight like sparring. It's Saturday sparring. We got to train normal. We train 11 in the morning. We train 6 at night every day. And his manager was like, what are you doing? We're like, bro,
don't break the cycle.
If we break the cycle and make this special, we're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
We got there and then we won. And Jimmy was training for Contender Series because he was fighting 2 weeks after that. So we go to Dallas. Jimmy comes to Dallas. I train Hamdi. Then I train Jimmy. They both train together at night. Hayden was with me. We were doing it every day.
Yeah.
Ran it. Boom. Do our thing. So wild. Unforgettable experience because that was one of those moments where all the grimy work paid off and then the system really showed up and it really put out on that fight week. Whatever happened after happened after. Mm-hmm. But that moment, that run, that was a special time.
Yeah.
That was like one of the, I remember Hayden was like, man, this is like, we made a machine. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But that's the thing, like when it all comes together, you have the right opportunity, the right guy. And hey, ultimately, I'll be honest, Hamdi tested positive for a steroid and got busted for 2 years. And all that work got thrown out the window. That moment was amazing. The downfall after it was
a disaster.
Jimmy lost in a fight he shouldn't have. Everything got weird. But, it was that, and that's the learning experience. That was the learning experience. We have to get that experience again in a way that's going to stick, that's going to hold. And if we do, great. That's, okay, what I mean by that is, that's all I'm working towards. I'm working towards recognizing a situation that we can do all of what I was just talking about and have it stick. Like, that's the thing now. I don't want to have that experience again and then it fall. I want it to stay and I want it to grow. We're going to do it again and then again and again and again and again, and then more people in it, because we now know what the blueprint is.
Right.
We now know where the failures of other people are. I know where the failures within me were. We know the failures within the program. Now, okay, fix those issues, fix the focus, move forward better. Mm-hmm. And the crazy part is, because I'll wrap this up because we've been talking forever, but everything we just said is what we do with someone that walks through the door on day one, or they're getting ready for a UFC fight, or they're going to a job interview, mm-hmm. or they're going to deal with their kids. It's the same shit. You have experience, you adjust, you learn, you get rid of the gaps, you don't stop fighting the demons, you just keep going on.
It's like standardize the process, make the process really good, and then that can help whoever in whatever situation.
Yes.
Like you said, whether you're just trained to get in better shape or if you're training for a UFC fight.
Think about it. If your offense and your defense are separate, you have a gap, and that's the gap that the better guys murder you.
Right.
So if we're trying to play one way out of the gym, one way in the gym, if we're trying to live one way in this aspect of life, this way in another aspect of life, if we have different standards based on situations, we don't have a standard.
Right.
We don't have a way, and that leaves us in that big gap, and a fucking truck's gonna run through that gap and kill you.
Yeah.
Like, close the damn gap. And the only way to do that is to fill the void, understand why, figure out what's your purpose, what's your value, what's your motivation, what's your intent, all of it. And I think that's, when I brought up Mark Montoya, I think that is Mark's gift to his people, is that he makes them understand that they have a value. He gives them a purpose, and then he provides a platform that just reinforces that over and over and over again. And that's why I think his system is what it is. I think that's why Eric Nixick at Extreme Couture with his guys, he has the longevity with his core group of guys the same way. I think that the best coaches at ATT are that way. I think Killcliff has provided that for their guys. There are some really solid rooms. I think GSP, when he was at TriStar and that team was so tight, same thing. Mm-hmm. There's those moments where we can make money while doing that process that it keeps together. Yeah. And then, sometimes the money is not as available because the world changes. But it's like when there's money there because of what that system can output and you can sustain it, those are those beautiful times.
And you know what I like about too, and I'll try to make this quick, but I feel like when you have a process like that and you have a good gym and the process is kind of standardized, you can pass the torch, so to speak, onto the next group of fighters. Because I feel like there was a while there, probably after you had Carl, D, all them, where it was like, we didn't have any fighters.
Because they never gave us room to have anybody else. They always looked at all the other fighters as a distraction from what they were trying to do because they were selfish about their careers.
Who did we have fighting
nobody
from
there were no amateurs. I didn't have an amateur fight for 5 years because of this.
It was crazy.
Because if I focused on anyone else, they viewed it as a problem. And if I didn't accept that their problem was now my problem, I would have lost them.
Right.
And because they had big opportunities, I was not developing the bench.
Right.
And then when they were gone and there was nobody,
Nothing.
and then I was like, okay, we got to fill the bench. And then I realized I had a room full of opportunity that I just had not paid attention to. And then the bench filled up really quick.
Yeah.
And everybody started to support, and then the bench started to grow and everything came together. And even Jimmy, who was like the most selfish dude I've ever known at a time, became like the most giving, supportive dude ever, because he was like, oh, cool people that give a crap.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's not a combative environment. Like it is, it's combat, but we're all combating enemies together instead of making each other the enemies. Amazing. Mm-hmm. And that gave me the room to address things and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man. Yeah, it's all, look, at the end of this conversation, at the end of the day, we can say good or bad. We can define stuff, right? No, we can't define experience as good or bad with hindsight. We can only define it by what we have learned from it and what our next step's gonna be. Mm-hmm. So if all that stuff we went through, it'll be bad if I ruin myself over it. If I ruminate on it, I don't learn from it, I don't grow. But if I make a better platform to give more opportunity, I have to be thankful to all those people. I have to be thankful for all that experience. I have to be thankful for the douchebags that came at us and did dumb stuff. Mm-hmm. I have to be thankful for all of it. I'm not picky about it. I smile and say, I'm here because of it all. Mm-hmm. Do I wish things could have been different for a lot of these people? Sure. Yeah. But it is what it is right now. And the only way to justify past is the future you develop off of the present. That's it. That is it. And that's what Killer Bee is now. That's why we're sitting here. If we judged you by who you were at 17, you wouldn't, how old are you now? Sorry.
I'm 31.
You wouldn't be sitting here with me at 31 based off of who you were at 17 if we didn't allow ourselves to evolve. Mm-hmm. The evolution from then to now, it's been a process. It's been an up and a down. Mm-hmm. But because we look at the experience, we make ourselves, we get to that point where we're like, okay, I'm gonna evolve now. That's what allows us to sit here again.
Yeah.
We separated because you were like, fuck it, I can't figure it out. And I was like, I'm here to help, but if you don't think you can, there's nothing I could do. Mm-hmm. And then when we came back together and we kind of, there's no big conversation to be had on that. It was just kind of organically like, we know the trust is there. We've had a long relationship. Yeah. And it was like, no, I'm trying to do better. I see you trying to do better. And we just do better.
Yeah. I mean,
it's literally,
it's
that simple.
Yeah.
You're trying to do better. I'm trying to do better. So, wow, okay. That's why we're sitting here doing better.
Right.
You're not trying to talk me out of anything. I'm not trying to talk you out of anything. We're actually trying to motivate each other to do more.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I want after all the bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why
kind of what you want out.
That's why Jay's back. It's even why Josh's back. Mm-hmm. That's why Nick Perenni's back. Mm-hmm. That's why the guys that were like the rocks and the pillars of our past are all back.
That's interesting now that you mention it. Yeah, because it was kind of like I said earlier, it was like Jay and Joff, me and Nick, and who knows who will come back.
Maybe Chris will come back.
Yeah, I mean,
if Aquino walks through the door, oh my God. You think he'll ever get fat? Or is he just going to be skinny forever? That dude eats 6,000 calories a day and be 115 pounds forever.
I mean,
I don't know. He probably has 50 kids now. I haven't seen him since his dad passed. I don't know. It makes me want to reach out now. Yeah. I do hear from Billy every once in a while.
Really?
Just a random, hey, what's up? Nothing crazy.
I haven't heard anything from Billy before COVID.
Yeah. But seriously though, it's awesome right now because again, there's no conversation to be had. It's just like we're recognizing where we're at. There's a maturity. There's a progress that we're all trying to make. And there's no like, I need to feel better about where we were. It's just like, no, where can we go?
Yeah, I mean, if you're constantly going to be looking to the past and having, it's like you just said, like an emotional attachment to like what happened and everything. It's just kind of like, I mean, you live, you learn, and you move on. Like,
that's it. You have to.
Yeah.
All right, Stine. I appreciate you coming on again.
Always.
And I think I'm going to keep you off the air for a while.
That's fine. We need to have a war stories episode.
Yes,
though.
that's
where
the
we
one that
just
the
talk
bottle
about-
has to come out, though. The bottle comes out for
One
that
episode
one.
of nothing but stories that we have.
Yes.
Because we have.
Yes,
we
too
could,
many.
That could be a 3-hour podcast
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
So.
And then the other one too is the one I want to do really soon is I want to bring all the people that have been competing over the last 2 evolutions. We have to come in and we have to come together, and we really do officially have to have a conversation about Jay and the impact that he had on our community and how much he meant to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because on the way out of this conversation, his daughter came to class yesterday.
Oh, okay.
She never wanted to train before, and she told her mom yesterday, she said, my dad would want me to be here. And she put tattoos all over herself, and she came in and she trained. I said, why'd you put all that tattoos? She goes, I want to be like my dad.
Uh-huh.
I almost cried the entire time. I held pads for her. I let her beat me up. And like, I was just like, it was such a special moment.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. But yes, we must get an episode very soon where we all get together and we talk about Jay.
Sure.
Cause there's so much about Jay and the impact that he had on Killer Bee, on the people there. And there are just so many moments that I just want to pick up the phone and call him and tell him what's going on. Because all the good things that are going on right now were things that we always were plotting and planning and working towards. I miss him tremendously, and I wish we could have him here, but I think we need to talk about him as a group and let other people know that, yeah, there are guys like him that are out there and they're super special, and his impact must be shared.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's what we're going to work on for the next one. Stine, thank you.
right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is the Hive 2.0 episode. I have no idea. We're out.